Tomorrow morning in New York, someone is going to hand over roughly $100 million for a piece of canvas. And get this, it was once found hanging in a smoky kitchen, just completely covered in years of cooking grease.
Yeah, that's a profound contradiction to open with.
Right. And meanwhile, for exactly $420, some guy who works in real estate just created this blockbuster quality sci-fi movie with, like, cowboys and zombies entirely from his laptop. So welcome to the deep dive.
It perfectly encapsulates the stack of research we have for today. We are pulling from the May 17th, 2026 edition of the Sunday Blender newsletter, which is an issue entirely themed around the Call of the Wild.
Exactly. And I wanted to dig into this specific issue for you today because it really maps out this bizarre whiplash we are all feeling right now.
Oh, absolutely.
On one hand, our digital tools are just accelerating into absolute sci-fi territory. But then on the other hand, we're still these fundamentally primal creatures,
Yeah.
desperately trying to maintain our grip on the physical world.
Right, yeah.
So the mission today is to figure out how we are balancing that tension.
Well, it requires a lot of cognitive dissonance. I mean, if you look at the landscape this newsletter covers, humanity is caught in a massive tug of war.
Yeah.
We're building technology designed to just abstract away every physical friction in our lives.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, we're placing unprecedented premiums on things that are raw, tangible, and, authentically real.
Let's start with the digital abstraction part, because the editor of the newsletter casually mentioned something that just stopped me in my tracks.
The Hermes agent, right.
Yes, they are completely offloading their personal communications. So we are talking email, SMS, Telegram, WeChat, all of it, to this autonomous AI called Hermes agent.
Yeah, it's wild.
I look at my phone, and the idea of just handing over my private conversations to an AI to, filter and answer for me, it feels like crossing a massive psychological line.
It really does feel like a Rubicon moment for personal agency. Well, what's fascinating here is, what makes Hermes different from the chatbots we're used to is its architecture.
Right, it's not just a standard bot.
Exactly. It's an open source agent that News Research released a few months ago, back in February.
Yeah.
It doesn't just take instructions. It actively learns your specific tastes, your tone, and your network.
It's basically a digital mirror.
Yeah, it essentially builds a digital mirror of your social logic to run your life.
And developers are absolutely swarming this thing. It grabbed 110,000 GitHub stars in just 10 weeks.
Which is unheard of.
Completely dethroning that previous system, OpenClaw, which apparently was just, too buggy to trust with your text messages.
Yeah, you don't want a buggy AI texting your boss.
Exactly. And Noose even ran a 16-day hackathon with the Chinese AI firm Kimi. They were throwing $25,000 at developers just to see what else they could make Hermes do.
Right. Just pushing the limits.
But okay, let's unpack this, because the software is basically free at this point, right? But the hardware required to actually run these digital brains is moving in the exact opposite direction. It's getting physically massive.
You're referring to the Cerebra's IPO.
Yes. They just pulled off the biggest IPO of the year. They raised $5.5 billion and hit a $66 billion valuation on day one.
That's staggering.
And their strategy to challenge NVIDIA isn't about, shrinking things down. We are so conditioned to think of computer chips as these tiny fingernail-sized squares of silicon. But Cerebras, they are manufacturing chips the size of dinner plates.
Yeah, and that scale is entirely about solving physical bottlenecks.
How so?
Well, when you have thousands of tiny individual chips trying to train an AI model, they have to constantly send data back and forth across wires.
Right, they have to talk to each other.
Exactly, and that creates latency. It slows the thinking down. So Cerebras bypass that by putting 4 trillion tiny switches onto one single massive wafer.
4 trillion? That's just, wow.
Right. All the communication happens instantly on one plate. It is a completely different paradigm of engineering. And that sheer computational density is exactly what is allowing AI to finally step out of the screen and into our physical spaces.
Which brings us to the mecha suit. I saw the video of the GD01, and honestly, my first thought was, who in the world actually needs this?
That's definitely intense.
It's a 500-kilogram manned mecha suit from a Chinese robotics company called Unitree. It is almost 9 feet tall. It has a cockpit in the chest for a human pilot, and it switches between walking on 2 legs and crawling on 4.
Yeah, the crawling mode is slightly terrifying.
And the demo shows it literally punching through a solid brick wall. So is this just a toy for billionaires, or is there a practical logic to selling a wall-punching robot for 3.9 million yuan.
Well, at about 570,000 US dollars, it's less than a high-end sports car, so there's certainly a novelty market for it.
True.
But practically, it represents the physical manifestation of those dinner plate chips we just talked about.
Okay, make that connection for me.
If you have an AI that can process spatial geometry instantly, you can put it inside a 500-kilo machine and trust it not to fall over while it's breaking down a wall. It's the automation of heavy physical labor.
Which creates such a strange contrast with human labor. Because while robots are punching walls, this guy known as MX Shell just disrupted Hollywood on his lunch break.
Oh yeah, the real estate guy.
Yeah, he works in real estate. But using AI generation tools, he single-handedly created a 5-minute short film called Zombie Scavenger. And it's visually stunning robots, cowboys, zombies.
And he did it incredibly fast.
10 days! And his entire budget was $420, which was just paying for server credits.
And the cultural impact was immediate. It got 13 million views on X.
Insane.
It even triggered a literal manhunt by a Hollywood AI filmmaker, PJ Ace, who took to the internet trying to track MX Shell down just to hire him.
So if MX Shell can make a movie for the cost of a fancy dinner and my Hermes agent is reading my texts while a giant mecha punches walls, are we outsourcing our own humanity or just building a very complex 4 trillion switch exosuit for our brains?
That is the core economic question of this decade. What's fascinating here is that when digital creation becomes infinite, instantaneous, and cheap, the human brain instinctively rebels.
We push back.
Exactly. We start placing an astronomical premium on scarcity. We crave physical reality. We want things that are secure, messy, and fundamentally impossible to forge.
Which explains the cooking grease on the Jackson Pollock painting.
Right, exactly.
And Morrow at Christie's, his 1948 piece, number 7A, goes up for auction. They are projecting it will sell for $100 million. And the newsletter points out this amazing detail.
A kitchen thing.
Yes. For a long time, this masterpiece by Jack the Dripper hung in someone's kitchen, just accumulating decades of smoke and grime.
Think about why someone pays that much money for a dirty canvas.
Right. Why?
Because a Pollock drip painting is pure, unreplicable physical chaos. He laid that canvas on the floor and aggressively flung paint from his brush. You aren't buying the image.
Because an AI could just make that.
Exactly. An AI can generate 1 million digital images of splattered paint in a second. You are buying a frozen, irrefutable record of a human body moving through physical space in 1948.
Wow. Yeah.
You are buying the history of the object right down to the kitchen grease. It is the ultimate anti-algorithmic statement.
And if we look at how much effort goes into preserving that physical reality, the logistics are just staggering, especially when it comes to power and security.
Like the presidential visit.
Yeah, the U.S. president was in Beijing on May 14th and 15th, and the newsletter highlighted what it actually takes to move the presidential limousine, which is known as the Beast.
It is a masterclass in brute force physical boundaries.
They don't just fly the car over. The U.S. Air Force had to land massive C-17 Globemaster III cargo planes in Beijing.
These planes are huge. They're designed to carry 69-ton battle tanks.
Right. And they use them to airlift an armored Cadillac. The Beast has 8-inch thick armor plating. It has tear gas cannons. The door handles can deliver a 120-volt electric shock to anyone who grabs them.
And the medical supplies.
Yeah, there is even a refrigerator inside stocked with the president's exact blood type.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a rolling fortress. In a borderless digital age where information leaks instantly, true power is demonstrated by your ability to control physical space.
That makes a lot of sense.
That 120-volt door handle is the physical equivalent of the most advanced cybersecurity encryption. It's something a digital Hermes agent simply cannot replicate.
But the premium on physical authenticity isn't just about armor and electric shocks, right? It also comes down to the bizarre ways we evaluate human leadership.
Like Jensen Huang.
Yes. Take Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. He's running the company that Cerebras is actively gunning for. And he was also in Beijing this week.
In the jacket.
Of course. It is 81 degrees Fahrenheit, humid, and he is wandering around a famous old alleyway wearing his trademark heavy black leather jacket.
The visual consistency of that jacket has become an anchor for the brand. It signals human stubbornness.
And he's eating street food. He tries doozy, which is this fermented mung bean drink that people either love or absolutely despise.
It's an acquired taste.
Oh, he clearly hates it. He grimaces. But then he tries a peach tea from a chain called Mixu and gives it a thumbs up. And the very next day, Mixi's sales for that specific tea spiked by 140% overnight.
See, that kind of market movement relies entirely on organic, unpredictable human reaction.
Because it's real.
Right. A digital avatar wouldn't sweat in a leather jacket during a heat wave, and it wouldn't grimace authentically at fermented beans. People trust the sweat, they trust the grimace.
Yeah.
But if a legacy physical brand relies entirely on its history and fails to integrate with the new environment, that premium vanishes overnight.
And Porsche is learning that the hard way right now. The newsletter points out this brutal statistic. Porsche is closing roughly a third of its dealerships in China. They're dropping from 150 stores down to around 80 by the end of 2026.
And the underlying reason is a failure of integration.
Their sales dropped 26% in 2025 and another 21% early this year.
Exactly. The physical badge of a Porsche used to be enough of a status symbol. But Chinese drivers have shifted.
What are they looking for now?
They want their vehicles to act as seamless extensions of their digital lives. Local EV companies like Xiaomi and BYD offer high-tech software ecosystems that integrate perfectly with the driver's environment.
So the legacy metal just couldn't compete.
Porsche's legacy metal simply couldn't outcompete a superior digital interface.
It's wild. We act like we are the first ones to figure out how to optimize environments, though. We build massive cargo planes, we optimize supply chains, we build 4 trillion switch chips to map geometry.
Yeah.
But if you step back, you realize we're basically just trying to pirate nature's code. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Nature has been running perfectly optimized networks for millennia without any of our friction.
I found this detail about the Chinese money plant incredibly humbling. A lot of you listening probably have one sitting on a shelf. Right now they have those perfectly round, coin-shaped leaves.
Yeah, very popular houseplant.
Well, researchers at Cold Spring Harbor Lab analyzed the veins in 34 of these leaves and discovered that they follow mathematically perfect Voronoi diagrams.
To understand why that matters, we have to look at the geometry of a Voronoi diagram.
Okay, walk us through it.
Imagine a blank map. You drop a bunch of random points onto it. A Voronoi diagram draws borders around each point so that every piece of territory inside a border is closest to that specific point rather than any other.
So it's about proximity.
Right. It is the absolute most mathematically efficient way to divide a space based on proximity.
And that is exactly how we build our cellular networks. When telecom companies decide where to place cell towers, they use Voronoi math to ensure every phone connects to the closest tower without overlapping signals.
It's the exact same math.
It's like nature has its own open source code. We think we're so clever inventing cell towers, but the Chinese money plant has had the patent on that geometry the whole time just to efficiently distribute water.
It demonstrates that the logic of survival is universal. And often, these massive natural systems are operating right under our noses, completely ignoring human activity.
Like the antelopes.
The antelope migration in South Sudan is a perfect example.
6 million antelope. It is the largest land mammal migration on Earth. It completely dwarfs the wildebeest migration in the Serengeti.
6 million animals.
And the only reason it's just now hitting the cover of National Geographic in May 2026 is that decades of civil war kept scientists out of the region. It took 330,000 drone photos to finally map the scale of what they were doing.
They were operating a massive, coordinated logistical network entirely hidden by our own human conflicts. They simply walked around the wars.
It's amazing, and it reminds me of the Endangered Species Day update about the gray wolves in California.
Oh, that's a great story.
They were hunted down and completely eradicated from the state by 1924. For 87 years, there wasn't a single wolf. But then, in 2011, a lone wolf that researchers named Journey just walked across the border from Oregon.
And now?
Today, without any human intervention or government reintroduction programs, there are 50 to 70 wolves living in 10 distinct packs. They didn't need us to fix it, they just walked back home.
We find that resilience deeply comforting. It's a reminder of an underlying order.
Yeah, definitely.
And that psychological need for order is exactly why a publication like the Sunday Blender includes geometric and number puzzles as mental palate cleansers for its readers.
I always saw those.
We are fundamentally pattern-seeking animals. We want to find the hidden logic in the wild.
But when we observe that raw, natural order, we don't just leave it alone. We have this deep, almost comedic urge to mimic it, organize it, and turn it into a competition.
This raises an important question about why we do that. We gamify our relationship with nature.
We really do. Look at the World Series of Birding in New Jersey. It is a grueling 24-hour race across the state.
24 hours of just bird watching.
Yes. You have a team of 16 and 17-year-olds called the Pete Dunallins running on pure adrenaline and M&Ms, desperately trying to spot as many bird species as physically possible. They hit 206 species.
That's a lot of birds.
But they lost by just 3 birds to a team called the Flying Penguins, who got 209.
It takes the quiet, observational act of bird watching and injects it with intense artificial stakes.
And if you want to see the extreme end of artificial stakes, we have to talk about Dortmund, Germany, and the German National Deer Calling Championship.
This is wild.
Picture a massive modern convention center. Inside, you have grown men wearing traditional green hunting jackets, holding giant curved horns and blowing into them to mimic the aggressive mating calls of red deer.
It's an 800-year-old tradition. Medieval hunters used these calls for survival. Today, competitors like Fabian Menzel, who, by the way, just won his 5th consecutive title, are judged on acoustic accuracy and what they call emotional realism.
They even run a children's division called the Kids Fight. I'm trying to wrap my head around the psychology of this. Why do we take a primal survival skill and formalize it into a judged competition in a trade hall?
It's a mechanism for taming the wild. By putting a judging panel and a trophy around a primal stream, we maintain our visceral connection to the natural world, but we assert control over it.
That makes sense.
You see the same impulse in the 78th Tulip Festival in Albany, New York.
Where they celebrate 140,000 tulips across 150 varieties, blooming by crowning a tulip queen, and literally getting out brooms to scrub the city streets, honoring their Dutch settlement roots from Fort Orange in 1614.
Exactly. Or look at the reverence we hold for our cultural narrators of nature.
Sir David Attenborough.
Yes, he just turned 100 years old. He gets a massive concert at the Royal Albert Hall, a birthday card from King Charles, and scientists name a newly discovered parasitic wasp after him. We build these elaborate cultural rituals to structure our relationship with the wild.
But we don't stop at local festivals or naming wasps. We take this underlying urge to compete, to conquer, and to build narratives, and we scale it up to create massive artificial arenas.
The structured escape.
Exactly. Look at the sheer volume of global sports energy this week. Bayern Munich secures their 35th Bundesliga title, with Harry Kane taking the top scorer spot for the 3rd year in a row with 36 goals.
Incredible consistency.
And Manchester City takes their 8th FA Cup off a beautiful heel flick goal by Antoine Semenyo. And then you have Lionel Messi at 38 years old, shattering the MLS record to reach 100 goal contributions in just 64 games.
Blowing past Giovinco's old 95-game record.
Right. Why do we care so intensely about these specific physical feats?
Because sports are the ultimate artificial arena. As our daily lives become more automated by software like Hermes, we need places where human physical limitations are still tested in real time.
We need to see humans push the limits.
Yeah, Messi operating at that frequency provides a shared global anchor of human capability.
And we build massive cultural infrastructure around these anchors. The 2026 World Cup is looming in June across Mexico, the U.S., and Canada, and they just dropped the official anthem with Shakira and Burna Boy called Die Die.
It's everywhere.
Movie ticket sales are up 16% because we are craving these collective blockbuster experiences, whether it's the new Mandalorian and Grogu, or Toy Story 5, or Christopher Nolan doing The Odyssey with Matt Damon, or even the live-action Moana.
We want shared cultural moments.
And even Eurovision in Vienna, the 70th edition. Bulgaria just won for the very first time with a pop singer named Dara scoring 516 points with a song called Bangaranga.
Eurovision is fascinating because it channels nationalistic competition into pop music. It's echoing the historic legacy of ABBA winning in 1974.
Right.
All of these, the stadiums, the theaters, the concert halls, they are controlled environments where we can safely experience tension and release. And historically, the most complex arena we've ever built for human competition is the financial market.
So what does this all mean? It ties directly into the historical anchor from the newsletter, May 17th, 1792. Exactly 234 years ago today.
The Buttonwood Agreement.
Yes. 24 traders stood under a sycamore tree at 68 Wall Street, and sign this document.
It was a simple agreement to only trade securities with each other and set a standard commission rate.
And from those 24 guys under a tree, we get the modern New York Stock Exchange. A system so complex that today, anyone listening to this can pull a piece of glass out of their pocket and buy fractional ownership of a Cerebras or an NVIDIA.
It's an incredible escalation of a local interaction.
It really is. But I have to ask you about the final story. Because when we run out of room to escalate on Earth, we look up. And this Mars shortcut feels like the ultimate encapsulation of human ambition, completely ignoring physical reality.
You're talking about the orbital mechanics paper published by the Brazilian astrophysicist Marcelo de Oliveira Souza.
Right. Usually, getting to Mars takes 6 to 9 months. But he found a geometric fast lane. By mapping a trajectory via a specific asteroid, 2001 CA21, we can cut the trip to Mars down to just 34 days.
The math is apparently flawless, but there's a massive physiological catch.
A fatal catch, because to enter the shortcut, your spacecraft has to launch off the Earth at 32.5 kilometers per second. We have never built a rocket capable of moving humans that fast.
And the landing is the real problem.
Exactly. There is no off-ramp. When you arrive at Mars 34 days later, you are traveling at 108,000 kilometers per hour. You can't slow down. You just smash into the planet.
You become a very expensive, highly educated meteor.
That Mars shortcut is hilarious. It's like finding a 5-minute shortcut to work, but you have to drive your car off a cliff at 200 miles an hour to use it.
It's a brilliant theoretical exercise that completely collapses the moment it encounters a physical human body.
Yeah.
You can draw the perfect line on a chalkboard, but the biology of the astronaut still has to survive the deceleration. It's the perfect metaphor for our technological era.
Well, thank you for unpacking this wild edition of the Blender with me. We really covered the spectrum today.
You definitely did.
From a real estate agent making a $420 AI cowboy movie to a $66 billion chip company, we marveled at hidden antelope migrations, questioned why anyone needs a wall-punching mecha suit, and mapped out a deadly 34-day sprint to Mars.
It highlights just how far we are stretching ourselves.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you with one final thought, inspired by the Yes, But comic featured at the very bottom of the newsletter.
Oh, I loved that one, the airport comic.
Right. In the first panel, you see a passenger holding her boarding pass. She is absolutely thrilled because she has achieved priority boarding group 1.
The elite status.
Exactly. She feels like she has conquered the system. But in the second panel, you see the reality of that status. She is standing on the exact same crowded tarmac shuttle bus, shoulder to shoulder with passenger number 127, just waiting for the doors to open.
It perfectly deflates the whole illusion of superiority.
It's a beautiful, grounding irony. We can invent autonomous Hermes AI agents to curate our social lives. We can build massive robotic exosuits and perfectly optimize the geometry of our cell networks.
Yeah.
We can even plot mathematically flawless 108,000 kilometer per hour trajectories to Mars. But at the end of the day, no matter how much technology we build to abstract the friction away, we are still just physical humans. We're all waiting in the exact same existential line together, just trying to find our place in the wild.